Hi, Pierce Dispatch listeners. This is the second part of our comparison between what it's like to serve in an urban and rural area. So, if you haven't listened yet, go back and listen to our conversation with Chief Jeremy Reeves of Munford Fire Department in Tennessee. Now, we're going to jump into our conversation with Captain Steve Mayer of the Sacramento Fire Department. Enjoy. Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Pierce Dispatch. I'm here with Steve from Sacramento Fire Department. Thank you for joining me, Steve.
Thank you, Alie, for having us.
So can you tell me a little bit about Sacramento?
Absolutely. So Sacramento, we have approximately, well, we're in California. For those that didn't know, we are the state capital. We have approximately 500,000 to 600,000 people that live within the city limits. Beyond the city limits, we have Sacramento County, and we have about 1 million plus people. So maybe even 2 million. But as far as the city goes, it's about 500,000 or 600,000 people. We have 24 firehouses. We have 24 pumpers, which are multiple types, which I'll talk about. We have, what else do we have? We have 10 truck companies, and we have also an ambulance program. So we have multiple paramedics that work within our district that protect the city. And we run about 110,000 calls a year just between those 24 firehouses.
Very busy, a lot of working hands to make everything happen there, it sounds like. So where does your role fall within the department?
Okay, so I'm a captain with the fire department. We obviously have four positions. We have the firefighter position, the engineer position, which is the driver, and then the captain. So essentially my role is I'm one of the supervisors in the firehouse. So we have a firehouse. We have 4 personnel on our apparatus. So I essentially lead those 4 members. Some of our houses will have an ambulance within it. And if we have a truck company in that same firehouse, then that truck company will actually have their own captain as well.
Okay. And can you just tell me what brings you to Pearson today?
Okay, so we are actually purchasing, or we're actually doing our final inspection on our ladder truck. So we've had the same model of ladder truck. We've been running a Velocity dual axle rear mount straight stick ladder truck for the past, since 2003, 2004, maybe I want to say. The only thing that's changed is we used to have a dash truck and now we're in Velocity. So we're here to pick it up, and our guys are down there right now checking it out, and we're having a great time.
Congratulations. So with this one being consistent with your previous builds, have you changed anything on them, or are they just a carbon copy?
They're pretty much a carbon copy. We did switch from the 105 aerial to the 107-foot aerial, so we're really excited about it. So that's new to us.
Sure. So you described your area. It's very dynamic. It's very diverse. It's very populated. So could you tell me some challenges you face with the missions that you guys respond to?
Yes, absolutely. So when you're in an urban department and you're running that type of call volume, I can give examples of, I worked on engine number 4. Last year, engine number 4 is a single engine firehouse with an ambulance company attached to it. We ran 5,980 calls just from one piece of equipment. So essentially the challenges that we have are, you'll go out on a run, and let's say you want to try to critique yourself or fix something after that run. You don't even really have that opportunity, because you're going from one run, you get dispatched to another run, and before you know it, you haven't been back to the firehouse in 2 hours. You've had 3 or 4 runs. So the compression time that we have, within that urban environment can be pretty challenging at times. So that's a big challenge that we have. To say the least, just like across the country, the fire service has just been getting busier and busier. The days, whether it's rural or if it's urban, the days of the firefighters sitting around playing checkers, waiting for the bell to hit, that's just not the practicality of it. I mean, the reality is that firefighters throughout the country have been inundated with call volume. And we're the fixers, right? So, when people run out of options, they call 911, and here we are. In the urban environment, we just have more people to call 911. So that's the biggest challenge.
So when you talked about your calls that you are attending to and how you're going back to back to back calls, what kinds of calls are you running on Engine 4?
Okay, so Engine 4 is, We do have a large homeless population in Sacramento. We do have some challenges with that. So we do have some homeless shelters very close to our district. So that definitely impacts us quite a bit. So a typical run that we would get, 4 or 5 in a row kind of thing would be someone's driving into work and they see a man down on the sidewalk. The man's just sleeping, but the person that is coming in from their home doesn't recognize that gentleman might be sleeping. So they call 911 because they think that there's a man down. So what happens a lot of times is they'll dispatch a fire engine, they'll dispatch an ambulance. We'll get there in the fire engine, recognize this is just a person sleeping, we'll cancel the ambulance. So now we're back available on the radio. So on the way back from that, we might get some calls in medical clinics. We might get just your typical, your cardiac calls, your medical calls. On top of that, of course, which we vie for, let's not fool ourselves. We're always waiting for that structure to pop, that fire call to come in,
You are not the first one to say that in this building, I'll tell you that.
Yes. Well, let's put it this way. A police officer wants to catch a bad guy. A military member wants to protect our country. And a firefighter, we want to go to fires. That's the end of the story right there.
Very well said. Very well said. So how many square miles how many square miles does your department cover, but almost how many does your station cover?
Exactly. That's really the best question. We're pretty much about a 4 or 5 square mile radius that we cover, which really isn't a very big distance if you think about it. It's a mile or two each way from the firehouse. And just based on how close you are to some of the impacted areas dictates how busy you are.
What are some considerations that you're putting into buying an apparatus that's going into an urban area?
As far as the urban area, if you work in a city, in our city specifically, there's a fire hydrant usually within 300 or 500 feet in any direction. So when we come to Pierce and we're designing our rigs, we design our rigs to have a 500-gallon water tank because we know that there's a water supply so close to us. So a typical fire call in Sacramento City is a residential structure gets 4 fire engines, 2 ladder trucks, and 2 chiefs with an ambulance. So right away within probably the difference between the first due fire engine and the fourth due fire engine is probably only about 1.5 to 2 minutes. So if the first in fire engine gets there in 3 minutes, the rest of the equipment, including the trucks, are going to get there within maybe 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes. So our resources come very quickly. So we can have those smaller water tanks. In Sacramento, we don't have our truck companies because we're what we call truck heavy because we have so many truck companies. We have extrication tools. We have the giant toolbox on the ladder truck. We don't carry any water on the ladder truck. So the only thing on our rigs are hose. If you're in a rural environment, you would probably have to have some extrication equipment on your pumpers. And we don't have to do that because we're so reliant on our trucks because they're truck heavy. So in an urban environment, our fire engines are pretty simple. We have an engineer's compartment and we have a bunch of hose and a bunch of accessories, but nothing that even takes fuel in Sacramento. The trucks carry all the stuff for fuel.
Wow. So do you ever have to tap into your water tanks or are you just going straight to the hydrants for water? I mean, it sounds like you don't need it.
Yeah, so we do actually use our water tanks. That's our starter. Most of the fire engines that you see sitting behind me and that you see out there, we have what's called cross lays. That's basically your tank water. So if you get a structure fire for us, our first due companies are usually fire attack because the next in companies that are coming behind us are so quick that they could set up the command portion for us. So our first due would essentially take fire attack. The next due would support them, take command, and handle the water supply for them. So the premise is that we would go into this house, start using our 500 gallons of water, and that next due company will secure that water before we run out of our tank.
Okay. All right. So can you tell me about your fleet and what kinds of Pierce apparatus you have in it?
Absolutely. So we started, from my recollection, and my dates might not be perfect, but back in 2001, 2002, we saw a pretty extreme need to replace our equipment. We had multiple different types of equipment that we were running with. We would purchase one piece of equipment at a time over the years, and we were having some challenges at fires. One of our battalion chiefs recognized this and basically spearheaded this for us. And we ended up meeting, went through Golden State. Mr. Bill Wright, I believe, is who was the founding father of Golden State. Our department, our members, our team, our apparatus team at the time, met with him, and we made a very large purchase here at Pierce, and we ended up getting the Dash engines, and we ended up making our entire fleet Dash. So Dash trucks, Dash engines. We've been running those Dash engines even to this day, and that was in 2002, 2003. They're in our reserve fleet, so they're not the first out ones. Yeah, but they're still tough. You know, they have 250,000 miles on some of these rigs, and they're tough, they're dependable, they're great. Well, what we noticed in 2010 is that the captains and the engineers didn't have a space for their gear. We were putting the gear in different spots in the back seat. And I think the velocity cab was introduced sometime around then. So our department thought, hey, we have the velocity cabs, we could switch to a Cummins motor. We could put these boxes in the back and we have some good compartment space. So we started going with the velocities. And I think we ran velocities probably from 2010 till I think it was 2017 or 18. And then Pierce, of course, introduced the Enforcer. So we've been running all of our pumpers are Enforcers. Our ladder trucks are still velocities. So we're really excited. So we feel like we've been so connected with Pierce for 22 years. Yeah, we've got a really good relationship with our folks over there at Golden State, and Ryan Wright and Darren on the service end.
Yeah.
Yes, they take very good care of us. They really do. So, and of course, how do you forget your salesman, Brad, right? The funny thing is Brad seems to know more about our equipment than we do. We always have to ask him, Brad, are we supposed to have this in this spot? And he gives us the yay or nay, you know? Yeah, he knows. Yes.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you shared that, and I'm really happy that you've had that long-standing relationship, and it sounds like it's just ever evolving and just continuously strengthening. So I'm really happy for you guys and your department as a whole to have that consistency. And there's an importance there of having that consistency of equipment and people that you can contact when things may go wrong or you need maintenance, or in those senses too. I'm sure that's helped you in that sense. So can you tell me about your future orders with Pierce?
Yeah, so we actually, and you know, I have to apologize because we also have an air rig that we're looking at today. But we have a couple more pumpers on order. We have 3 more trucks. We're also changing a little something for us because all of our truck companies, like I spoke about earlier, we're all standardized. We're just rear mount, dual axle, you know, straight sticks. And about a year or so ago, we decided to purchase a tower ladder. So that is on order. We're going to be doing some designing on that, and we're really excited about that. Yeah, it's a great resource for the downtown with the high rises with the bucket, because that's going to diversify our fleet for us a little bit. So yeah, a couple engines, couple trucks coming, the air rigs here. We're excited.
Sure. And so my next question, just a different segment now. Could you just share about what it's like for staffing your department? Is it all career? Do people come up through a juniors program?
Absolutely. So Sacramento, we're very fortunate. We have what's called 4.0 staffing. So we have 2 firefighters in the back. We have the captain, as I said before, and the engineer in the front seat. That's the same for our ladder trucks as well as our engines. What that allows us to do is be pretty effective when we show up with that extra firefighter. To start with our department, we have multiple programs. We do have a reserve program. Right now it's in a little bit of a hiatus, but it was actually something that I was part of for about 3 years, where essentially you volunteer your time, you get to show your dedication to the department. From there, you can either directly go into what's called a paramedic internship program. So what we do is we find youth within the community because we want our department to reflect the community. So we're able to go into the community, grab folks, bring them in, introduce them to the fire service, take them through either their EMT, like as the foundation, or if they're already an EMT, we'll put them through paramedic school. So we have these interns that come through, and it's probably about a 1 to 2 to 3 year program. And within that time, they actually get to see, the benefit to that is that they get to see the department from the inside out. So fortunately for me, I actually got to be a reserve, a volunteer, and I got to be an intern. So when I finally came out of the fire academy, the 6-month fire academy that we do, you have a pretty good insight of what the expectation is once you get online. You've been a little bit exposed to the fire service, the firehouse, the culture, and you've also been exposed to the administration side on what the expectation is, so you get to see that. And I think it forms a really good employee when they come through those types of processes.
Absolutely. It's awesome that you can connect with your community on that level, especially with the younger generation, so that can build into your department. I mean, that's going to be the next generation of members that you have. So I think that's awesome. And so could you just talk about your training skill sets of your firefighters? I know you talked about how to become a firefighter on your department, but could you talk about, you have reoccurring trainings, I'm
Mhm.
assuming,
Yes.
as career firefighters. But could you talk about your training programs within?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do what we call multi-company drills. So once or twice a year, our training division will put on these multi-company drills. So they'll give you a scenario essentially of either a fire or a hazmat or some high-profile incident that has low frequency, and then they essentially put you on a calendar. You go out there with 2 or 3 other engine companies, like from the north area, the south area, one from downtown, so we don't impact our services too much. We get out there, we do a rep basically for about 2, 3 hours, critique it, go over it, and then bring it back. So, and obviously that just the ripple effect of that is just all positive, because what that does, it gets some of the guys that might not want to be going out right now. It gets them engaged. Um, it gets the guys and gals that want to get after it. It gets them to hone their skills, and then the ripple effect, like I said, is just essentially you just keep talking about it afterwards, and then everyone comes together. So it's really positive.
Sure. So do you do more than just those uncommon calls? Can you talk about maybe more routine calls? Do you practice those, or is it just so common that you don't need to?
Yeah, they honestly, and I think I speak for most fire service. When you go on the routine call, the seizure, the cardiac call, the overdose, whatever that might be, the diabetic emergency, we as firefighters go on those so frequently that it's just almost a muscle memory thing. When you go there, which is a good thing, right? For the person that's having the emergency, you don't want the person showing up to not be prepared. So if we don't have to train on that, we definitely don't focus our energy and time on that. Like I said, we just kind of focus on some of the less frequent calls that are more critical.
Absolutely. So could you share with our skill sets of your top firefighters?
Okay, so basically to do the extra stuff, which we offer as a department, as an organization, we do. We have rescue systems, so we have specialized rescue company. So in order to be part of that specialized rescue company, you have to go through a series of 5 classes, and each one of those classes, I think, is about a week. So quite a bit of training there. We do have a hazmat program. 2 of our truck companies actually have a hazmat rig attached to them. So if a hazmat call comes out, they go on. But then again, that's another, I think that's 7 or 8 more weeks of training on top of that. So really to get that extra skill set other than just your typical, engine company call that we're going on every day in, day out, to get those extra steps is just additional classes that you take. And for us personally, our department supports a lot of that. Sometimes you have to take care of that stuff on your own, like at your own time. But we do that. I think that one thing that we have in Sacramento that's actually really unique is we are surrounded by a couple of cities. We have West Sacramento, we have Sacramento Metro Fire, we have Cosumnes Fire, and then we have Folsom Fire. Well, we're all essentially in a regional group together. We have a regional standard operating guidelines committee that meets every month. And the players in that room essentially have game plans, tactics for if we go to a residential fire, what's the tactic? If we go to a commercial fire, if we go to high-rise fire, if we go to a water rescue. So we have all of these documents that are essentially available for every member within our region, not just Sacramento Fire Department, but all the other outlying departments, because we run together so much. So those skill sets that we have, those other departments have too. So let's say that I show up on scene on a fire engine and we have a person that's in a trench rescue, that something's collapsed in on them. That's a little bit above our ability as a single engine company to handle. So what I would do is I would call for a special rescue, and what a special rescue will end up getting us is some rescue companies. So it's not just going to get us the rescue company from Sacramento, it's going to get us the rescue company from Cosumnes, from Sac Metro. So it's going to bring them together. So we're all speaking the same language regionally, which is very nice.
Yes, one team. That sounds like
Absolutely.
the best plan is everybody's same page, one mission, one goal. You guys
Yes.
can get get it done together. Could you just run me through what it's like funding at your station, getting equipment, getting people, getting truck? How does that work? Does your city support you? Do you have to do your own fundraising? What does that look like for you guys?
So our city supports us. The challenges really that we do have with funding is just, as you know, the cost of everything has been going up. So we have allotted money that comes from the city. Some of that can be limited at times, and we do have challenges keeping up with the increase of cost of things. So what we have to do is come up with creative ways within the city to find those one-time monies to get us to keep up with the trends. Essentially, I mean, let's face it, when we get new apparatus specifically, there's technology changes, right? And those technology changes cost money. So sometimes it's important for us to convey to our city leadership what the necessity is for us in the fire service, and they support us through that.
I'm really glad that they support you through that, and it's a challenge that isn't very uncommon that I hear when I speak with firefighters of, oh, we had to be really creative with this one, or, it was just the perfect timing. We got that call, an apparatus was available or a stock unit was available, and we just made it happen. I mean,
Yes.
it's not an uncommon thing around
Yeah.
here. So could you just run me through the moment that a tone drops at your station? What's the movement happening in the firehouse? What's
Okay.
going on?
Well, there's two different tones that go off, right? There's your everyday tone, which I think we all know. The bell goes off. We get up right away. We go to the printer. We have a red light that goes off. Pull it up. It might be a mundane call. We get in the rig. Our rule with our department is that you get in the rig within 1 to 2 minutes. Our lights turn off in 2 minutes. So you know that if you're not in the rig when those lights are off, or if you don't get in the rig by the time the lights are off, then you know that you're running late. So it gives us a good indicator of that. We get in the rig. We have what's called an MDCs, also iPads that basically give us all the information that come across the printer. We have a mapping system. So we hop in. The engineers usually know where to go because we don't cover a huge area. And then we'll go to that call. Fire call, a little different. Fireground pace, right? So, we basically turn out as quickly as we can because obviously we don't want engine 2 or engine 10 or whoever that is to beat you in your district. Because essentially, like I spoke before with our department, if you're the first to fire engine, then you're essentially the fire attack, and everybody else really supports you. So it's great to be supportive, but we kind of like to be, in the lead.
All right. So could you give me some examples of how your department has had to adapt or innovate or overcome any of the challenges just in general recently?
Yes, we actually, like I spoke earlier, we're running 110,000 calls a year, right? So engine 4 is running just under 6,000 calls. I won't say 6 because it didn't make it, and those guys are killing themselves that they didn't make 6,000. They were short by 18 runs. But, the equipment isn't made to be going on 6,000 runs a year. I mean, you think about the maintenance part of that. We're running the rubber off the tires, we're running through fuel. And a lot of the calls that we're going on, like I said, are basically that man down call, right? So someone called, they're concerned. We get in this rig, we fire it up, we run fuel down the road, we're paying for all this stuff. So our department decided to try a pilot program, and it's called a squad concept. So what a squad concept is 2 firefighters, a paramedic, or 2 paramedics, and we have 2 of them right now. And what that does is we put, instead of engine 4 and ambulance number 4 at station 4, we have fire engine number 4, and we have squad 4. So we moved the medic out to somewhere else. So the medic 4 is still operating, but we essentially ran it to where the squad number 4 will go on all the low-level emergency calls. So we set it up for like level A, B, C, and D as far as seriousness of calls. The squad goes on to level A and B calls. The man down on the corner, maybe a fall, weakness, what we would call like other level 1s, like maybe check a smoke investigation, that kind of thing. We'll send the squad. And what that squad has done is it decreases the amount of calls that fire engine number 4 needs to go on, and it keeps fire engine number 4 available for suppression for house fires. In the first 11 weeks that we ran this squad concept, squad number 4 ran 1,100 calls in 11 weeks. So it ran 100 calls a week. And granted, it's not just in 4's district. So Squad 4 will go into Station 6's district and other people's districts. So the district is bigger, which gives them the ability to help the other resources as well. So that's one of the innovative ways that our department has tried something new, and it's definitely making a difference that
Good.
I've seen. So
Good. I'm
yeah.
glad. Has that affected how you will lay out your apparatus or any equipment on it?
Essentially, oddly enough, we took one of our Type 6s, which is like a Skeeter model that we have, that we use for wildland, and we kind of did a little bit of a hybrid. We put some saws on there, we put some irons on there, because one of the proverbial carrots that the department did for us with the squad concept is, hey, we're not going to dispatch you to fires, but you can jump fires. So you could put yourself on fires. So they knew that they didn't want firefighters just running medical aid calls day in, day out, day in, day out. You got to give them a little bit of something, right? So we put some chainsaws on there, some hooks, some forcible entry stuff, and some SCBA bottles. And, you get to jump a fire here and there. So it kind of gives you that proverbial carrot to keep going.
I like that. A little incentivized.
Absolutely.
A little incentive for the
Yes.
firefighters running those
Yes.
calls. So, what advice would you give to a firefighter who's maybe moving from a completely different state to your department? What advice would you have for that transition? What can they expect?
I could tell you the Sacramento Fire Department, in my opinion, because it is my department, is the best department, right? So, and I would expect anybody else from any other agency to say that about their department. But the Sacramento Fire Department, we have a lot of culture. We're over 150 years old. Our firehouses can be up to 90 years old. So there's so much history with us. But with that history comes a little bit of excitement too, right? Like to be part of that, to walk into an old firehouse when you walk in and there's still brick on the walls, and you could think about the people that were there before you. It just has a distinct smell and nostalgia to it. And for us in Sacramento, we eat together. We eat lunch and dinner together. We each pay $15 a day. We come in, we roll dice. Our tradition is we roll dice for everything in our fire department. So if you lose the dice roll, you're cooking. If you lose the dice roll, you're doing the dishes. If you lose the dice roll, you're buying coffee. You name it, everything gets decided by the dice. So we have a lot of really cool traditions in our department. And you can expect that if you did come from a different organization to our organization, the call volume is definitely a lot. So it's great for people wanting to get some great experience. They can come in, they can just get as much experience as they really are looking for. So it's an exciting place to be.
Sure. So I want to circle back just for my final question to hear more about your delivery. So just tell me about maybe some of the top features you're the most excited about. I know it matches many, many others in your fleet, but what are your favorite parts about it?
So definitely the 107-foot, the Ascendant ladder has some different features on it. It has the remote control in the back where we're not used to that. So that was something we actually just got taught. Our outriggers, we've got the cameras now on the outriggers. So when you're pulling up on your screen, you can actually see, make sure there's no potholes, no vehicles in the way, that type of thing. So, and we're also doing a clean cab. So we were one of the first in the region to come up with this clean cab concept, which I think, as you know, is like wipeable surfaces. We have HEPA filters. We have clean water rinse tanks on there, at least on our pumpers, and no SCBAs inside the cab. So that's a fairly new thing for our department. So we had to come up with some creative ways to find spaces for the SCBAs. So we're really excited that we were able to find those extra spaces. Of course, working with Brad, our great sales guy, and designing that rig. And I think we put something really well together.
And can you tell me, I know that tradition runs deep in the fire industry, so tell me about how that is in your department.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can actually speak to, now you talk about tradition, our color. So, every fire department has almost their own color. Like if you go down in the paint shop here in Pierce's, you've seen there's hundreds of different reds, right? There's not just one red. So one of the things that we really preserve is that we actually have the real gold leaf that Pierce offers on our engines and trucks. So we have never changed that. That's important to us to have that gold leaf. And our color is a super bright red. We call it ripple red. The tradition behind that, there's a history piece to that, is we had a gentleman named Dennis Ripple. He was an engineer at Station 16. And unfortunately, he passed away. Many years ago, he passed away. And he always used to stand outside in the same spot, right outside the captain's window, while he was in the apparatus bay. And he stood in that same spot all the time so much that we actually painted his boot marks in the ground. And to this day, those boot marks are still there. I think he died in the late 90s. So those boot marks are still there. But he was a really big hot rodder, and he had this red, super beautiful, shiny red old car, classic car. And we called it Ripple Red. So our department decided to preserve his tradition in his honor, that we actually have, I think it's 356 or 256 red that we have, and it's called Ripple Red in memory of his tradition.
Absolutely. I hope it stays that way forever. And yes, that tradition is just tried and true. And I hope that they put some vinyl over that floor so it never changes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate you sitting down. I know it's a busy time when you come and pick up your truck. You wait so long to come and get it. And now you're here. You finally get to see it and take it home. So thank you for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Captain Steve Mayer of Sacramento Fire Department. Make sure to go back and listen to our conversation with Chief Jeremy Reeves of Mumford Fire Department to hear what it's like to serve in an urban area in Tennessee. Thank you.